What happens when a billionaire goes undercover in his own fast food chain and overhears something that changes everything? The smell of sizzling burgers and freshly fried fries filled the air as Adam Carter, billionaire CEO of Carter's Burgers, stepped into one of his own restaurants, but this time as an employee. Dressed in a simple uniform with a visor pulled low over his forehead, Adam took in the chaotic scene. Employees rushed back and forth between the kitchen and the front counter, trying to keep up with the flood of customers. The constant beeping of fryers, the chatter of customers placing orders, and the sizzling of meat on the grill created an overwhelming symphony of noise. For years, Adam had built his fast food empire from the ground up. What had started as a single small burger joint had turned into a nationwide chain with hundreds of locations. Profits were at an all-time high, and investors constantly praised the company's success. But something nagged at him. Reports painted a picture of efficiency and growth, but Adam knew that numbers didn't always tell the whole story. His biggest fear? That somewhere along the way, he had lost sight of the people who made his business run. That's why he was here today. No corporate meetings. No luxury office. Just him, a name tag that read Ben, and a deep desire to see if his company truly treated its employees right. As he approached the counter, a burly man with a thick mustache, the store manager, Greg, glanced at him with disinterest. "You're the new guy?" Greg asked, barely looking up from his clipboard. "Yeah. First day," Adam replied, keeping his tone casual. Greg scoffed. "Well, don't expect it to be easy. We're short-staffed, lunch rush is brutal, and if you can't keep up, you won't last long." Adam simply nodded. That was exactly what he wanted, to experience the reality his employees faced every day. As he tied his apron and stepped behind the counter, Adam had no idea that in just a few hours, he would hear something that would shake him to his core. Something that would change everything. The moment Adam stepped behind the counter, the true intensity of the job hit him. Customers lined up impatiently, tapping their feet as they waited for their orders. Grease popped from the fryers, the kitchen staff yelled out instructions, and the register beeped endlessly with new transactions. It was chaos, but for the employees, it was just another day. "Ben, quit standing there and take orders," Greg barked. Adam snapped into action, stepping up to the register. The first customers barely looked at him, rattling off their orders without pause. Burgers, fries, sodas. Each order had to be punched in fast before the next person stepped forward. Within minutes, Adam felt the pressure build. His fingers stumbled on the touchscreen. The line kept growing. Customers got impatient. "Come on, man, it's not rocket science," someone muttered from the line. Sweat formed on Adam's brow. How did his employees do this every day? As he struggled to keep up, his eyes landed on one of the other cashiers, a young man, probably in his early 20s, with dark curly hair and tired brown eyes. His name tag read Ethan. Unlike the others, Ethan didn't rush or panic. His movements were fast but precise, his voice polite but mechanical. There was no energy in him, just exhaustion. Adam watched as Ethan worked through a long string of customers without pause. His shoulders sagged slightly, his eyes darted toward the clock every few minutes. Then, something strange happened. During their short 10-minute break, most employees sat at the back of the kitchen, quickly eating their meals. But Ethan? He simply leaned against the wall, staring at the floor. He wasn't eating. Adam frowned. Did he not bring food? Did he not have time to eat? Or was there another reason? A few minutes later, Greg stormed into the room. "Break's over. Back to work." Ethan pushed himself off the wall without a word and returned to the counter. And just like that, the moment was gone. But for Adam, a seed of suspicion had been planted. Something was off about Ethan, and Adam was going to find out what. The next few days followed the same exhausting routine. Adam quickly realized that working in his own fast food chain was far more demanding than he had imagined. Long hours, impatient customers, constant multitasking. It drained him in ways he never expected. And yet, what shocked him the most wasn't the difficulty of the job. It was Ethan. No matter how intense the shift got, Ethan never slowed down. He never laughed with coworkers, never complained when the rush got overwhelming. He simply worked. And more than that, he never ate. Adam watched carefully. Every shift, employees got one free meal as part of their break. Most took advantage of it, sitting together to eat burgers and fries. But Ethan? Every time, he turned down the food. If someone asked, he'd force a quick smile and mumble, "Already ate," before coming in. But Adam wasn't buying it. Late one evening, after the final customers left, Adam saw Ethan standing by the trash bins outside the restaurant. The dim glow of the streetlight cast shadows across his face as he reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. He counted them. Twice. His shoulders sagged. It wasn't enough. Adam's chest tightened. This wasn't about skipping meals because of time. Ethan couldn't afford to eat. Something inside Adam shifted. For years, he had prided himself on paying his employees competitive wages. But if Ethan, one of his hardest workers, was going hungry, then something was deeply wrong. And Adam was determined to find out why. Adam couldn't shake what he had seen. Ethan wasn't just tired. He was starving. For days, Adam had watched him skip meals, work overtime, and count coins like every cent determined his survival. But why? That night, as the shift ended and the last employees cleaned up, Adam overheard something that made his blood run cold. Ethan was leaning against the counter, talking quietly to another worker, a girl named Lisa, who looked equally exhausted. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," Ethan murmured. Lisa frowned. "What do you mean?" Ethan let out a tired, bitter laugh. "I mean, I'm working double shifts, skipping meals, and I still can't pay rent. My landlord is threatening to kick us out. And my little sister." He stopped himself, shaking his head. Lisa's face softened. "Ethan, have you tried asking the manager for help?" Ethan scoffed. "Greg? Yeah, right. You think he cares?" Adam's hands clenched into fists. He had known Greg was strict, but was he really ignoring his employees' struggles? Lisa sighed. "Maybe you should take some food home at least. You know we're allowed to." Ethan looked down, his jaw tightening. For a moment, Adam thought he might actually accept it. But then Ethan shook his head. "I can't. If I take food, that means less for the next shift. Someone else might need it more." Adam felt his breath catch. Even when starving, Ethan still thought about others. At that moment, Adam knew he couldn't stay silent anymore. It was time to act. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. Ethan's words haunted him. "I'm working double shifts, skipping meals, and I still can't pay rent." How had things gotten this bad? Adam had built Carter's Burgers from the ground up, always believing his company took care of its employees. But Ethan, one of his hardest workers, was barely surviving. And if Ethan was struggling this much, how many others were suffering in silence? Adam refused to wait any longer. The next morning, before his shift, he made a quiet call to his corporate office. "I need an emergency employee relief fund set up. Anonymous. No red tape. And I need it today." His assistant hesitated. "Sir, that's going to cost." "Do it," Adam cut in. "And make sure it reaches the people who need it most." That evening, as the shift ended, Ethan went to clock out, only to find an envelope taped to his locker. Frowning, he pulled it off, flipping it over. No name, just a note that read, "For when times are tough." He slowly opened it, and his breath hitched. Inside was a stack of cash, enough to cover rent, food, and more. His hands trembled. Who? His eyes darted around the empty break room, but there was no one there. For the first time in months, Ethan felt something foreign, relief. Whoever had done this, they had just saved his life. Ethan sat in the break room long after everyone else had left, staring at the envelope in his hands. It didn't make sense. Why would someone do this? For months, he had struggled alone, fought to stay afloat, skipped meals, and worked extra shifts, only to still fall short. He had begged his landlord for more time, stretched every dollar, and told his little sister everything will be okay, even when he wasn't sure if it was true. And now this. Enough money to keep them from being evicted. Enough to finally buy groceries without counting every cent. Ethan's chest tightened. Whoever had done this, they had just given him hope again. For the first time in months, he didn't go home dreading the next day. That night, he bought a warm meal for his sister. He sat at the table with her. He ate, and for the first time in forever, he felt human again. The next morning, Ethan walked into work lighter than before. He still had struggles, still had to work, but something had changed. Lisa noticed it first. "Whoa, what happened to you?" she teased. Ethan chuckled. "Just had a little help." Adam, watching from the register, felt something tighten in his chest. Ethan had no idea who had helped him, and that was okay. Because for Adam, this wasn't about recognition. It was about doing what was right. But deep down, he knew Ethan deserved to know the truth. And soon, he would. For the first time in months, Ethan didn't feel like he was drowning. The weight on his shoulders hadn't disappeared, but it had become lighter. Whoever had left the envelope, they had given him more than just money. They had given him a second chance. And Ethan wasn't going to waste it. He worked his shift with more energy than usual, surprising even himself. When a new trainee struggled at the register, he stepped in to help. When Lisa dropped a tray of drinks, he helped clean it up without hesitation. Adam watched all of it. The way Ethan, who once carried nothing but exhaustion, was now lifting others up. It was proof. When you help one person, that kindness ripples outward. But Adam knew one thing. Ethan deserved more than an anonymous act of kindness. He deserved the truth. So that evening, after the last customer left and the restaurant lights dimmed, Adam took a deep breath and walked up to Ethan. "Hey, can we talk?" Ethan frowned, confused. Sure, what's up?" Adam met his gaze. "There's something you need to know." It was time. Time for Ethan to learn who had really been standing beside him all along. Ethan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Something about Ben had always seemed different. Now, standing alone with him, Ethan could feel it. Something big was about to happen. "What's going on?" Ethan asked, his voice cautious. Adam exhaled slowly. "No more disguises. No more pretending. My name isn't Ben," Adam said. "It's Adam Carter." Ethan blinked. "Wait, what?" Adam pulled off his visor and set it down. "I'm the CEO of Carter's Burgers." The words hit Ethan like a freight train. He let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You're kidding, right?" Adam shook his head. "No. I came here undercover to see how things really are for my employees. And what I found," he sighed, looking Ethan in the eye. "What I found was you." Ethan's breath caught. "I heard what you said to Lisa. I saw you skipping meals. I watched you work yourself into exhaustion just to survive." Ethan swallowed hard. "So that's how." "The envelope," he whispered. "That was you." Adam nodded. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Ethan let out a shaky breath. "Why?" Adam's expression softened. "Because no one should have to go through what you did. And because if I had never come here, I never would have known." Ethan looked away, his jaw tight. He had spent so long believing that no one cared. But now, he wasn't so sure. "I didn't just want to help you," Adam continued. "I wanted to fix this. Not just for you, but for everyone like you." Ethan's eyes flicked back to him. "What do you mean?" "New policies. Better pay. A food assistance program for employees. No one at Carter's Burgers will ever go hungry again. Ethan felt his chest tighten. This wasn't just about him. This was bigger. Adam placed a firm hand on his shoulder. You've been through a lot, Ethan. But now, you have a choice. You can take this help and move on, or you can do something more. You can be the person who sees someone struggling and chooses to step in. Ethan's throat tightened, because that was exactly what someone had done for him. After a long pause, he nodded. Yeah, I can do that. Adam smiled. Good, because the world needs more people like you. And with that, Ethan realized this wasn't just a second chance for him. It was the start of something much, much bigger.